uncovering sinister secrets of a cursed town. Spine-chilling stories you must discover. The hushed whispers and fog-drenched streets of Cedar Hollow unveil a dark truth, as the very soul of the town begins to unravel. Rachel, a 32-year-old journalist, feels the oppressive weight of history pressing against her chest. She navigates through the eerie silence, overgrown lawns, and abandoned shops, all remnants of the once thriving community. Each corner echoes with the laughter of children long gone, now just a haunting memory. The familiar path to her childhood home twists with an unsettling dread, as the shadows beckon her to remember something sinister. Every house wears the scars of neglect, but one particular porch seems alive, as if something lurks just outside the range of light. A feeling creeps up Rachel's spine, a warning barely felt but hard to shake. These feelings intensify as she recalls the tales spun by her grandmother. Spirits watching over the town, protecting its folk, yet those tales hint at a darker side, an edge of mystery that now chills her. Compelled by instinct and her dwindling finances, Rachel dives into investigating recent disappearances. The town is restless, plagued with fear. It's just a coincidence, her neighbor whispers, cautioning her against gossip. But an inner fire drives her to uncover the truth, despite the deep-seated reluctance hanging like a fog. At a gathering in the church basement, the atmosphere turns thick with tension. Residents share tales reminiscent of ancient rituals, tales of land and harvest, wild parties turned into offerings. Rachel's heart races. These strange nods to her childhood bedtime stories slip into horror. The mayor, with his charming smile, promotes understanding while secretly wielding an unsettling allure. His words prick her skin like needles, urging her to dig deeper. Sometimes nature demands, he remarks with a glint in his eye that feels more like a threat than a promise. As nights roll in, she notices the peculiar patterns, the local police's dismissive glances, their tight-lipped silence dissuading her pursuit for clarity. Late at night, shadows thicken outside her home, and hesitant voices morph into urgent murmurs, as if warning her away. Rachel's heart pounds like a drum as she clutches her children closer, a chilling realization gnawing at her mind. The very people she once called friends now seem part of the eerie grip encircling Cedar Hollow. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The first break in her feeble case arrives when Rachel stumbles upon an ancient box in her grandmother's attic. Hidden within are grim photographs of the missing familiar shadows laced among the sunny family portraits. One image holds her captive, a blurred figure lurking at the edge, something decidedly familiar from her own family history. As realization strikes, cold dread wraps around her like a fog. She's south, drawn dangerously close to the town's despairing secrets. Amid the nightly whispers, a folded note slips through her door, taunting and clear. Leave Cedar Hollow, or become part of its legend. Heart racing, she understands now that the very essence of her hometown pulls tighter around her neck, transforming familiar faces into figures of terror. With no escape and danger lurking at every corner, Rachel must confront the abyss opened by her investigation. Looking down the path that leads away from the hearth, she feels the chilling echo of children's laughter, an unwelcoming reminder that here, trust can twist into terror in a heartbeat, and Cedar Hollow's dark legacy is watching. Rachel sat in the eerie stillness of her dimly lit living room, the pulse of her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The note lay crumpled in her hand, the ultimatum hanging like a noose around her neck. Leave Cedar Hollow, or become part of its legend. Every word felt like a curse woven into the very fabric of her life. The air felt thick, as if the ghosts of her past were pressing in around her, urging her to make a choice. A sharp knock shattered the silence. Rachel jumped, her heart racing. She hurried to the door, peering through the peephole. The porch light cast a faint glow, revealing a figure shrouded in shadow too familiar yet too distant. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, face pale and taut, panic etched across her features. "Rachel, open up. Quick." Her voice quivered, frantic and urgent. Rachel opened the door, stepping back instinctively as the elderly woman entered. Mrs. Jenkins's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. "You shouldn't be here. They know you're poking around." Rachel shut the door, locking it with a shuddering breath. "What are you talking about? Who knows?" Mrs. Jenkins leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The town, it's not what you think. You have to trust me. They're watching. The disappearances." Her voice trailed off, as if even naming them was sacrilege. "I found photographs," Rachel began, but Mrs. Jenkins raised a trembling hand. "Don't." She shook her head violently. "You mustn't dig into things that should stay buried. They are restless." The old rituals, the mention of harvest sent a chill down Rachel's spine. The stories of offerings, long ago dismissed as folklore, flooded her mind. What rituals? What offerings? The dread tightened its grip, but Rachel pressed on, needing answers. "They demand a sacrifice, Rachel. Every few decades, something must be given," Mrs. Jenkins whispered, grave and serious, "to appease the spirits that guard the land." It was always done quietly. Rachel felt the world spiraling. "You mean the missing people? Is that what they've done?" "They're not missing, they're part of the town now," Mrs. Jenkins said, her eyes glistening with tears. "We can't let that happen to you. You must leave before it's too late." Just then, a noise erupted from the dark outside, sharp and shrill, an unearthly wail that reverberated through the walls. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. The very air around her felt charged, crackling ominously. Mrs. Jenkins grasped Rachel's arm, her grip painfully tight. "They're coming. We need to hide." Rachel's mind raced. Who was coming? And why was she being targeted? But before she could voice her concerns, another knock echoed through the house, louder this time, more forceful. The door rattled in its frame, as if something outside strained to break in. "Hide," Mrs. Jenkins urged, shoving Rachel toward the back room. She stumbled but didn't hesitate, darting past the curtains where darkness consumed the back corner of the room. Heart hammering, Rachel pressed her ear against the door, catching the frenzied whispers outside, the town's voice morphing into something monstrous. "Come out, Rachel. We know you're in there." Panic surged. Faces from her past stormed through her mind, and all the images in those old photographs blurred together. What did they want from her? The voices grew louder, chant-like, mixing with the pounding of her heart. Suddenly, the door's handle rattled violently, and with it came a sickening sense of inevitability. Was there truly no escape? As the door pounded again, Rachel's breath caught in her throat, understanding now that Cedar Hollow's legends weren't just stories. They were the harbingers of her fate. What awaited her beyond those doors? The door burst open, and in that moment, the darkness poured through the threshold like a living thing. What had she unleashed? The darkness twisted and writhed, taking form like a grotesque specter with an insatiable hunger. Rachel's skin prickled as she stepped back, heart racing. Mrs. Jenkins stood frozen beside her, pale as a ghost, her eyes wide with terror. The town's whispers had changed, now a cacophony of voices rising in a frenzy. "Join us. Be one of us," they echoed, crawling under Rachel's skin, urging her closer to the void. A figure emerged from the shadows, its features indistinct. The air grew heavy, thick with malevolence, suffocating her resolve. "Run," shouted Mrs. Jenkins, pulling Rachel's arm. They darted deeper into the room, past heavy drapes that fluttered like the wings of trapped birds, seeking escape. But where could they hide from what was coming? Behind them, the darkness surged forward, a tidal wave of despair. It reached for them, fingers of shadow scraping along the walls, tearing through the fabric of reality. Rachel's mind raced. Memories surged like a weight, the photographs flashing before her eyes, the faces of the lost whispering in her ear. They were calling her back, binding her to this wretched place. What do we do? She gasped, glancing at Mrs. Jenkins, who now seemed so frail and small against the encroaching doom. There's a cellar. Mrs. Jenkins pointed to a trapdoor in the far corner, almost hidden beneath an old rug. We can hide down there. Is south the only safe place? Rachel nodded, urgency igniting her senses. They scrambled for the trapdoor, throwing it open. A musty smell rose to greet them, the darkness of the cellar deep and consuming. With a last, desperate glance toward the encroaching shadows, they slipped inside and slammed the door shut. The darkness was almost palpable inside the cellar, but it felt like a comforting cloak compared to what lurked above. In the stifling air, Rachel could hear the muffled chaos playing out above them. Shouts and screams collided with the whispers, now mocking her from the crevices of the walls. Rachel, Mrs. Jenkins whispered, clutching Rachel's arm tightly. You have to listen to me. They only want one thing, but a loud crash broke through the muffled sounds, rattling the very earth beneath them. The trapdoor thudded, the shadows outside growing bolder, like predators sensing their prey. Rachel felt the panic building again, clawing its way up her throat. She needed answers, but with each passing moment, dread anchored itself deeper in her gut. Rachel, Mrs. Jenkins repeated, her voice trembling. You must remember, they take from us those with the strongest ties to M. Those who dig too deep. The cellar quaked around them, dust cascading from the beams as another forceful blow echoed through the house. What do you mean? Rachel asked, leaning in closer to hear. What ties? What do I have to do with any of this? Your family, your lineage. It runs through Cedar Hollow. They want you as part of the offering. Panic spilled from Mrs. Jenkins' lips, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and desperation. We must find a way to break before she could finish. The shadows above them twisted, their voices rising in a furious chant. Join us! Join us! The words swelled like a dreadful hymn, a force pushing against the very walls. Rachel grabbed Mrs. Jenkins' hands. They want to take me. I want to let them. Her voice shook, but the resolve hardened. Suddenly, the shadows surged, tendrils creeping down the stairs, snaking around the trapdoor's edges. They were seeking her after her very essence. In that moment, Rachel realized what she had to do. There was a secret, something she had to confront, something buried deep within her own bloodline. But was she strong enough? Just as the shadows threatened to pull apart the door, Rachel shouted, I will uncover the truth. I will end this. With that declaration, an electric charge pulsed through the cellar walls and a blinding light erupted from within, swirling with the energy of 1,000 unsung voices. What would she unleash next? The light enveloped Rachel, a searing brilliance that pushed back the darkness. Its warmth contrasted sharply with the freezing chill that gnawed at her skin. She could feel the energy swirling, pulsating against her, urging her to confront the shadows lurking just beyond. What's happening? Mrs. Jenkins whispered, clutching Rachel's arm tighter. The woman's breath came in panicked bursts, her eyes darting around the cellar as if expecting the shadows to retaliate any moment. I don't know, but I think it's my only chance, Rachel shouted, her heart pounding in her chest like a wild animal desperate to escape. The light was growing brighter, blinding her momentarily as it surged. Instinctively, she stepped forward, feeling an exhilarating rush of power coursing through her. In the midst of this overwhelming energy, a whisper cut through the air, clearer than the cacophony above. Remember, it beckoned. The voice resonated not just in her ears, but in her bones. It was familiar and yet foreign, urging her to dig deeper. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if stung by the brilliance. Rachel squinted through the brightness, focusing on the silhouettes that writhed just beyond the trapdoor. You want me, don't you? She called out, her voice steady despite the tremors of fear. What do you want? A sudden silence fell over the cellar, the kind that wraps around you, squeezing the breath from your lungs. It was as if time had stopped. Then the shadows began to retreat, coiling away from her as if repelled by the confluence of light emanating from within her. Rachel, Mrs. Jenkins pleaded, her voice trembling again. You mustn't let them take you. You have to break the curse. How? Rachel snapped. The warmth that enveloped her felt intoxicating, but uncertainty gnawed at her insides. Your past. Confront it. Mrs. Jenkins insisted, her eyes wide and pleading. The truth lies in your memories. They want your fear, your pain. The chant from above began to rise again, echoing through the walls with renewed fervor. Join us. Be one of us. It surged like a tide, threatening to drown out any glimmer of hope. Rachel's mind raced, and images began to flood her thoughts, faces of family members long gone, memories of laughter twisted by sorrow, the stories her mother told about Cedar Hollow, and the darkness that surrounded their lineage. The ominous weight of expectation pressed down on her. You are not alone, Mrs. Jenkins said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Their power feeds on isolation. You must bring the others to light. Others? Rachel stepped back, confusion swirling in her mind. Who? Your ancestors. You must remember their names, their stories. They'll give you strength. As if on cue, a rush of memories washed over her like a breaking wave. Faces, events, and lost whispers danced within her mind, those who had faced the shadows before her. Their pain was palpable, and for a moment, it broke through her own resolve. In that instant, the light around Rachel dimmed, flickering like a candle in a storm. Panic clawed at her as the shadows sensed her wavering strength, surging toward her once more, a creeping tide of darkness intent on dragging her down. No, you can't have me, she shouted defiantly, forcing herself to remember every name, every face, every tortured scream that had been silenced in this town. They were the key, their stories were the bridge between her and the inscrutable darkness that hungered for her. With newfound resolve, Rachel screamed, I will honor you, I will remember, and the light erupted around her, igniting with raw energy. In that swirling crucible of memory and light, she felt the presence of her ancestors gather beside her, their silhouettes forming a shield against the shadow. Would it be enough to turn the tide? Then, with a deafening roar, the shadows charged, aiming straight for Rachel. The trapdoor rattled violently above them, the chants turning frenzied. And just like that, the light pulsed once more, surging outwards, ready to reveal the truth of her bloodline. But who would emerge through the chaos? As shadows closed in, Rachel held her breath, teetering on the brink of revelation. The shadows seemed to roar with a life of their own, merging into a tidal wave of darkness that surged towards Rachel. Desperation clawed at her throat as she felt the weight of centuries of pain pressing in from all sides. Her ancestors surged alongside her, their dreams and fears swirling together, providing an undeniable strength that fueled the light. Together, she cried, her voice cutting through the suffocating gloom. The room exploded with luminescence as if the very walls were coaxed into a spectral dance, casting flickering silhouettes that shimmered and vanished. For a fleeting moment, Rachel felt untouchable, filled with the collective courage of those who came before her. But the darkness was relentless, whipping around her, shrieking in a language of despair. You think light can save you? It hissed, 1,000 voices mingling into a haunting symphony. You are forever tethered to the shadows. Rachel clenched her jaw, fighting back the venomous chill that slithered into her spine. As she concentrated on the figures of her ancestors, she began to recall their names: Edith, Samuel, Margaret. Each name resonated, weaving together a tapestry of strength that shielded her from despair. The chill intensified, pressing against her, squeezing the air from her lungs. Focus, Mrs. Jenkins urged, her grip unyielding. Don't let them twist your memories. You're stronger than this. Rachel's palm tingled as she clenched her fist, drawing on each name she uttered, each memory she summoned. With every rising chant, her heart pulsed in unison. You are part of me, she shouted into the encroaching void. I will not forget. I will rise. Suddenly, a moment of eerie quiet enveloped the cellar. The atmosphere shifted, the energy nearly palpable. Rachel could see the shadows retreating, not entirely vanquished but teetering as the light flickered with renewed ferocity. It had awakened something deeper, something buried beneath layers of grief. She could see glimpses of her ancestors' faces reflected in the light, their expressions a blend of fear and fierce determination. But beyond them, darker shapes began to emerge, figures from her past, twisted and corrupted by sorrow. She recognized them instantly. Mom? Dad? Rachel breathed, horror rippling through her. Their eyes, lifeless yet knowing, glared back at her in the shifting shadows that sought to drag her down. Join us, Rachel, they whispered in harmony, voices sweetened with poison. Embrace us. Embrace your fate. No, she screamed back, shaking her head fiercely. You're not them. This is not the end. The light blazed, battling against the horrors that memories had brought forth. But a pang of uncertainty gnawed at Rachel's heart. Were they merely illusions? Or did they hold the truth that could sever her from the chains of despair? The shadows writhed, seeming to sense her turmoil, their whispers growing louder, more demanding. Join us, Rachel. They beckoned once more, seductive and cold. We are your true legacy. Accept it. Panic clawed at Rachel's throat, sending a chill racing down her spine. Tears streamed down her face, and she felt the ground shift beneath her. Were these the remnants of her family, or were they the very shadows seeking to consume her entirely? Mrs. Jenkins stepped forward, eyes ablaze with determination. Rachel, remember the love, the warmth. They died chasing the light. Don't let them win. The urge to surrender was powerful, but the vision of her ancestors standing tall, fighting against the darkness, ignited a fierce spark within Rachel. I choose the light, she shouted, her voice shaking the very foundation of the cellar. With that, she thrust her hand out, the energy roaring to life with unprecedented strength. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in panic as the shimmering light surged forward, swallowing them in an explosive wave of brilliance. But as the shadows enveloped the space, the darkness hissed ominously. You think this is over? The true horror is just beginning. A suffocating pressure pushed down as the cellar walls began to tremble. What had Rachel awoken? What ancient spirits lurked beneath the town, waiting for the cycle of terror to begin anew? As the very air crackled with tension, Rachel steadied herself, grasping the light that flared in her palm. The answer was somewhere within her, hidden and waiting. The tremors intensified, and Rachel's heart raced as fear clawed at her insides. Shadows danced erratically along the walls, flickering like dying embers. The whispers swirled around her, a cacophony of sinister promises lurking beneath. Wake us, unleash us, they hissed, threading through her mind like needles. Hold on, Mrs. Jenkins screamed, her voice breaking through the noise. You've come too far. Don't let them pull you back. Rachel's stomach twisted as she turned to her mentor, seeking reassurance, but Mrs. Jenkins's eyes were wide with terror. The sudden drip of cold condensation fell from the ceiling, landing heavily on Rachel's neck. She shivered, her body mirroring the icy dread suffocating her thoughts. With every breath, the cellar breathed darkness, compressing her senses. The light she wielded flickered, uncertain. Would it hold? No, no. Panic surged within her as she thrust her palm higher, struggling to maintain her focus. The faint glow sparked, sputtering like a candle caught in a gale. I want let you take me, she yelled, forcing the energy to pulse from within. The brilliance flared, illuminating her ancestors, their faces clear now, urging her forward. But the atmosphere thickened, terrifying shadows stretching toward their prey. Against the oppressive dark, Rachel caught an unsettling glimpse of twisted features, eyes dark and hollow, taunting even from afar. They reshaped themselves into familiar shapes, mocking the love once shared, a sister, a cousin, all bearing the marks of anguish. Rachel, come back to us, they murmured in an unnaturally sweet harmony. Gritting her teeth, she shot back. You're not real. I refuse to be part of your nightmare. In that moment, the ground beneath Rachel buckled, the shift reverberating through her bones. She stumbled back, clutching a crack in the floor, the earth splitting open to reveal darkness below, a gaping maw seeking to swallow her whole. Help me, she shouted to Mrs. Jenkins, but the woman was grappling with the shadows, her own light dimming. Rachel's heart sank, the fight was slipping away. Realization crashed into her, this was a battle not just for her life, but for the souls trapped in this cycle of torment. She pushed herself upright, straightening her posture. The very air thrummed with presences that wanted what they once had. Wisdom, experience, power. Closing her eyes, Rachel inhaled deeply. Memories of laughter, warmth, love, they surged to the forefront. "You are with me," she shouted, her voice breaking through the storm within. "I will not forget you. I will light the way home." With a final, desperate surge, she launched the bright energy forward like a blazing star. It shot from her palm, illuminating the shadows with a force that screamed of obsidian rage. The specters shrieked in retaliation, swirling around the core of light. "I command you," Rachel shouted, channeling all her memories, the joy, the suffering, the love into a singular force. The shadows flailed against it, their sinister whispers morphing into desperate wails as the light pushed them back, away from her ancestors. But the darkness whipped into a frenzy, tasting their fear and tearing the very foundations around her, threatening to collapse into oblivion. Shadows flickered at the edge of her vision, entities that had lurked below, biding their time. "You think you cast us out?" A voice echoed, hauntingly familiar. "This is just the beginning. Our hunger is insatiable." The shadows coalesced, pulling away the very essence of the light, merging, transforming. Horror surged within Rachel as the faces morphed again. Her family twisted into grinning specters, an inescapable creed of sorrow. Had their fates really been sealed? With desperation clawing at her, Rachel held onto the energy with every ounce of will. "No, this isn't the end," she screamed as the cellar trembled again. Louder this time, the shadows warping into monstrous shapes, a malignant force gathering strength. What terror had she awakened? And what price would it demand from her heart? The chilling laughter reverberated through the air, an ominous promise of horrors to come as the shadows surged closer, boundless and insatiable. Rachel could only hope that the light inside her was enough to challenge this new looming darkness. Would she break the endless cycle? Or would she succumb to the call of despair that echoed through the grave of her ancestors? The light flickered dangerously, wavering under the suffocating pressure of shadows threatening to swallow it whole. Rachel clenched her fists, feeling the warmth of her ancestors' love fade as the darkness pressed against her. She couldn't falter now. Every ounce of strength left in her had to flow into the light. "You're not real," she repeated, louder this time, but doubt crept in. Was she just fooling herself? The shadows twisted and writhed, forming into grotesque shapes that lunged forward. Swallowing hard, Rachel felt her breath hitch. Desperation clawed at her throat. They were closing in, their voices merging into a discordant symphony of despair and fury. "Join us, become one with us." "No," Rachel spat, forcing her voice above the electric storm of terror. Each syllable felt like a fragile thread, fraying under the weight of the malevolence. Just then, she caught a glimpse of Mrs. Jenkins, her own energy swirling in a waning halo, weakened against the encroaching void. It struck Rachel like a hammer. Her mentor was fading. "I'll save you," she cried, but the words tasted like ash. The room shook violently then, and the cellar walls trembled, as if the house itself was alive, battling against the abyss, clawing through its very fiber. Cracks expanded, lines of darkness bleeding through like spilled ink. The floor bucked, debris raining down around them, and Rachel fell to her knees, staring into the emptiness creeping ever closer. Suddenly, an idea struck her like lightning. Channeling the spirit of her family, she reached deeper into the well of her memories. "You are with me," she cried again, this time focusing her energy on the ancestors surrounding her. She thought of Grandma's warm embrace, her brother's laughter, and the comforts of home. As if on cue, the spirits began to rally. They swirled around her, their voices merging into a single powerful chant, a timeless echo that fought back the advancing darkness. In all that chaos, a single shadow pulled away, revealing a figure that sent icy dread coursing through Rachel's veins. A tall, sinister figure with hollow eyes, mouth twisted into a cruel smirk, emerged from the cloud of darkness. It towered over the others, an abominable king of the shadows. You think they can save you? It purred, voice a venomous whisper that caressed her ears. Let them go. Let me show you the truth, Rachel. Rachel staggered back, instinctively raising her hands to shield herself. The figure's aura pulsed with chaos, and the shadows writhed at its feet in pulsating hunger. Her heart pounded painfully, a wild drumbeat warning her of the danger closing in. This is all a lie, she screamed, denying its revelatory allure. Is it? It laughed, echoing through the chamber, drowning out her scream. Your family was never whole. Look, and see what is hidden beneath your beautiful memories. Rachel's hands trembled. An urge to look gripped her tightly. Just as she was about to yield, Mrs. Jenkins surged back with her own fading light, pushing forward. Rachel, don't listen. Their promises are chains. With that, the heavy weight of Jillian's voice overcame the mockery of the shadowy figure. Taking a deep breath, Rachel steeled her resolve, clutching onto the last fragments of radiance. Together, Rachel shouted, directing her focus to Mrs. Jenkins, desperation sparking in her eyes. Their energies met in a swirling spiral of light, pushing outward against the relentless darkness. In that burning moment, Rachel felt ecstasy of hope spark within her. But then suddenly the room fell silent. A suffocating stillness descended, freezing them both in place, as if time itself had paused, waiting for the inevitable reaction. The Shadow King's grin widened, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Then let the final game begin. Sweat trickled down Rachel's back as she braced herself, everything unraveling around her like a bad dream that wouldn't let go. As the dark began to coalesce into something more solid, fear melted into determination once again. Would the power of love trump this new terror, or would they be swallowed whole by their past? Rachel's eyes blazed with defiance. She had to know the truth. But what twisted fate awaited them all? Rachel felt the weight of silence pressing down on her. It was a clammy, unnerving stillness that made her spine tingle with anticipation. She dared not blink, terrified that when she opened her eyes, the world would have shifted irreparably. The figure loomed over her, its shadow stretching like the grasping fingers of a dying man. Choose, Rachel. The silky voice of the Shadow King dripped with malice. The fading light or the sweet surrender to the dark. They cannot help you now. Rachel's heart pounded louder than the chaos of the previous moments. Her mind raced. What does he mean? She wondered. She could feel the energy from her ancestors pulsing. But was that enough? In an adrenaline-fueled burst, she reached for the light again, feeling its warmth enveloping her, pushing back against the encroaching shadows. No, she yelled, not just for herself, but for Mrs. Jenkins too. We are stronger together. Our memories are more powerful than your lies. The shadows responded, recoiling from her declaration. But the Shadow King only chuckled, a sinister sound that echoed like a death knell. Ah, but memories can be deceiving. What if I show you the truth behind your family? The dark history that ties you to me? With a flick of its wrist, the darkness pulsed and a vision materialized just behind him. A gathering of haunting figures surrounded a smaller version of Rachel, her innocent face bathed in light, unaware of the evil lurking close by. The air thickened with a sense of dread as she recognized the faces of her ancestors, twisted in strife, their silhouettes clothed in shadows. Look at them, the king sneered, leaning closer. They fought for you, yet they dragged you into this darkness. They couldn't escape their fates, nor can you. Rachel's breath hitched as the sight deepened her uncertainty. She couldn't deny the chilling feelings of betrayal creeping into her mind. Had she unknowingly inherited their burdens? No, she denied, squeezing her eyes shut. I want to believe you. But the emptiness of the cellar pulsed, threatening to suffocate her as stomach-clenching doubts and twisted truths clawed at her mind. Rachel, fight! Mrs. Jenkins rasped, vulnerable yet steadfast. All those memories? They're pieces of a puzzle. You have the power to rewrite their story. Fueled by desperation, Rachel ripped her eyes open. The light flickered again, But this time she saw paths of energy intertwining, a dazzling spectrum of colors spiraling wildly against the oppressive darkness. The memories of her family seeped in. Love, laughter, kindness. With each image came newfound strength. Together, she shouted again, and this time, she reached out a hand to the flickering light. It responded, shooting forth like an arrow, igniting every corner of the room in brilliant luminescence. The shadows writhed, anxious and angry. "You think this can save you?" The king bellowed, his voice sharp like shattering glass. "Yes." Rachel roared back, asserting her will with every fiber of her being. With a thunderous boom, the light erupted outward, colliding with the darkness in a blinding explosion. For a moment, she floated in chaos, a whirlwind of color and sound. But soon, that sensation twisted into dread as reality began to warp around her. The walls buckled and bent, anguish spilling forth from the very marrow of the house. "Let me show you," the Shadow King cried, and in the next breath, Rachel felt herself being pulled into a void, losing the grip on the light. "Rachel!" Mrs. Jenkins screamed, her own fading light going dim. "Don't let go. Hold on," she thought, like a lifeline. But the darkness tugged harder, slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. Would she crash into oblivion, or break free and conquer her fears? Just as she sensed the brink of being consumed, a question echoed in the void, chilling her to her core. What will you sacrifice to uncover the truth? Breathe and face the shadow of her bloodline. In that moment of agony, the substantial weight of choice loomed larger than the darkness. What secrets would she unearth? Rachel felt the sensation of falling, weightless and free, as if the very air was sucking her into a dark abyss. Time had no meaning in the void, and the distant echoes of Mrs. Jenkins's voice faded into nothingness. Panic clawed at her throat, choking her resolve. She had to find the light again, a sliver of hope amidst the consuming dark. Rachel, a whisper floated through the emptiness, soft yet sharp with urgency. It was her name, a lifeline in the clutches of despair. You must choose. Images flickered in and out of her sight, visions of her ancestors, their faces filled with torment and regret. A knot twisted in her gut. Could these ghosts be the key to her escape, or were they merely tools of the Shadow King, shackled to their own destinies? A flash of light. Rachel gasped as she found herself standing in a twisted reflection of her childhood home. The walls were charred and cracked, teeth-like splinters protruding from the wooden frames. The flickering lights above cast shadows that danced like restless spirits. The air was thick with dread. "Welcome back," the Shadow King's voice oozed from the corners, creeping up her spine. "This place holds your family's secrets, the darkness they carried." She gritted her teeth, forcing herself to remain upright. "I want to let you win." The words were weak, but they were all she had. Before her, the darkness morphed into a familiar shape. Her father, hunched over, his expression twisted in anguish. "Rachel," he whispered, each word a dagger in her heart. "I tried to shield you from this." The grief on his face made her reel. "Why didn't you tell me?" she shouted. "What did you do?" "I did what I had to protect you." His voice trembled, echoing in stark contrast to the Shadow King's laughter. "The pact, it was never meant for you. They wanted to keep the darkness contained." A new vision washed over her, images of her family performing a ritual, hands grasping stones etched with ominous symbols. The air thickened with the sweet scent of incense. The chants echoed in her mind like a haunting lullaby. It was in this moment she understood their power had been a double-edged sword. The curse wasn't a choice. It was a burden. She whispered, realization crashing over her like a cold wave. The Shadow King's laughter grew louder, drowning out the last vestiges of reason. "And now it's yours. Will you embrace it or let it devour you?" Behind him, the shadows pulsed, merging and separating like venomous serpents, ready to ensnare her. Fear twisted like a knife in her belly. "I need to know," Rachel screamed, forcing her voice high and firm. "You need to confront their failure." The king hissed, moving closer until the chill of his breath grazed her skin. "Only then will your family's legacy be revealed. Only then can you decide your fate." The ground beneath her feet trembled, threatening to open wide, dragging her into a pit of despair. "What must I do?" Rachel demanded, her heart pounding furiously. "In the heart of the darkness lies the truth," he murmured seductively. "But beware, for the truth is rarely what you want it to be." With a sudden jolt, Rachel felt herself sinking deeper into the echoing cries of her ancestors, into the mysteries they sought to hide. The walls twisted, the shadows loomed high. She was caught in the grip of a horrific revelation. What lay at the heart of this legacy? Would the darkness claim her, or could she turn the tide? The suffocating quiet made her heart race, fueled by the unquenchable thirst for truth. There would be no return until she unraveled every thread, and then a chilling thought gripped her. What if the price for that truth was more than she could pay? The shadows thickened, swirling around Rachel as if they were alive, seeking to ensnare her in their cold, clammy embrace. Her heart thudded painfully, an urgent reminder of the ticking clock behind them. She had to confront this darkness and uncover the reality lurking in her bloodline. With determination boiling inside her, Rachel focused on the vision of her father. "You shielded me from the truth, but I will not hide anymore," she shouted. The darkness writhed with her words, its whispers turning into furious howls. "Show me what you kept hidden." The room exploded with light, a crackling energy pushing against the corrupted shadows. Memories flashed before Rachel, not just her own, but the truths of those who came before her, the mistakes, the fears, the sacrifices. Each name echoed in the silence. Edith, Samuel, Margaret. They cried out, not for her despair, but for her strength. Rachel's eyes alighted with a fierce resolve, amplifying the glow radiating from within. "I will weave our stories together. I claim the light." The shadows recoiled as if struck, their sinister forms twisting in retaliation. "You will not claim me. This curse ends here." The Shadow King's laughter turned sinister, his form shifting as he towered before her. "You think you can defy your nature? You will become what we always feared." "No," Rachel countered, feeling the surge of energy from her ancestors flow like a warm blanket around her. The truth she grasped was a lifeline, an anchor to who she was. The pulse of her family history grew stronger. "I reject you. I will reclaim our legacy." A blinding beam erupted from Rachel's hands, surging through the air like the burst of a supernova. The shadows wailed, the cacophony a terrifying melody, as they were pushed back by the force of her ancestors' love and her unwavering courage. Light flooded the room, illuminating every inch of darkness, every hidden corner. The Shadow King roared, his form flickering like a flame on the verge of extinction. "You cannot extinguish me. I am eternal." But Rachel stood her ground, emboldened by the memories swirling around her, weaving them into a shield of light. "You are nothing without fear. You're a shadow of the past. I break this cycle now." The brilliance surged, each pulse resonating with the energy of her family, a chorus bound together against the malevolence that sought to consume them. The walls of her childhood home trembled, cracks spreading as the light shattered the darkness, rendering the shadows powerless. And then silence. As the dust settled, Rachel found herself standing outside the remnants of her house. It was still Cedar Hollow, but somehow, the air felt lighter. The streets, once heavy with fear and whispers, now pulsed with an unexplainable peace. Rachel took a deep breath, feeling the warmth cradle her. Her family's spirit was woven into the very fabric of this town. "Thank you," she whispered, grateful for the echoes of their courage. Mrs. Jenkins appeared beside her, looking weak but alive. "You did it," she breathed, tears shimmering in her eyes. "You broke the curse." Rachel smiled gently. "We did it. Together." The truth is that love conquers the darkness if we only dare to confront it. Time moved forward for Cedar Hollow, as whispers of the past were transformed into stories of hope. The community came alive again, finding strength in their histories, embracing the light rather than treasuring the darkness. Months passed, and Rachel became the town's storyteller, sharing tales of the lost and the brave, of shadows faced and light claimed. She watched her children thrive with laughter and warmth, their childhood free of suffocating secrets. On the eve of the harvest festival, Rachel stood on the porch of her family home, warmth enveloping her like a cocoon. The air was rich with laughter, memories lingering in the vibrant glow of autumn leaves. She turned to Mrs. Jenkins, now her confidant. "We'll keep writing our story, one word at a time." As laughter swelled through Cedar Hollow, she felt a profound sense of peace. They had faced the darkness together, and it no longer held dominion over them. "Just remember," Rachel added softly, "the threads of light are interwoven with the dark. We honor our past better by embracing it." With that, she lifted her eyes to the evening sky, a tapestry of stars shining bright above, a reminder that hope would always prevail. The cycle had ended, but the story had just begun. If you want to keep diving into gripping narratives and uncover hidden truths, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button to send this to the algorithm, and flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about Cedar Hollow's fate. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to join this journey. Your support matters.